In this lesson of 6.6, we're going to continue to look at inequalities in triangles and just how things compare in different triangles, knowing maybe the set of angles or the set of sides, how it's going to compare when we look at two different triangles. So we discussed this in 6.5. Whenever we have an angle, if we set the two sides of our angle, the length of them, and if we just open up that angle to make it larger or smaller, then that third side is going to be based off of how that angle changes. So in this gate over here that we have, they draw it down here at the bottom, an angle that's opening and closing. AB, the side AB, and the side AC don't change. Okay, the length from the fence post to the fence post is the same. The length from the fence post to the end of the gate doesn't change. But as the fence opens, it makes our angle larger, and it's going to make a further distance from that opposite fence post to the side of the fence, or of the gate. Okay, so this is what we've been talking about. Whenever an angle gets larger, that means that that side is going to get larger as well. So in last lesson, we just looked at in one triangle, we were able to identify which sides were going to be the longest compared to which angle is the largest, and etc. But now we look at two different triangles. So if we have two triangles that have two sets of congruent sides, and so as you can see in this first example here, we have WV, it has two lines on it, and so does RS, so that means that those sides are the same. We have VX has one line, and RT has one line. So between the two triangles, we have two sides that are the same. And between those two sides, we have a set of angles. One angle is 88 degrees, the other angle is 35. So basically all hinge theorem tells us is that because of the 88 degrees being larger than the 35, okay, then it's going to mean that the opposite side is going to be larger in that triangle. So as you can see, they state because of angle V being 88 degrees and angle R being only 35, across from it, it's going to be greater as well. So we get this statement down here of WX is greater than ST. We can do the opposite as well, just like how we did with our just one triangle when we're comparing two. So if we have two sets of sides that we know are congruent, the third sides are not congruent, then we can make a statement based on the angles of which angle is going to be larger. Obviously, again, if my side is larger, then that means my angle has to be larger. If my side is smaller, that means my angle has to be smaller. So here we have triangle ABC and triangle DEF. We have AB is 12 and DE is 9. Obviously, AB then we can see would be greater than DE. So that means the angles across from them are going to be associated in that same manner. So the angle across, so in this case, measure of angle C, is also going to be greater than the angle across, which is the measure of angle F. So if we look at this first example, it tells us given that ST is congruent with PR, which is already marked in our diagram, we have this one line and one line. It says, how does PST compare to SPR? So PST is going to be the angle, I'm going to mark it in blue. And then we have SPR, and I'm going to mark that one in green. So SPR is going to be this angle here. So when we look at this, it asks us how they compare. Well, first off, in hinge theorem, it tells us we have to have two sets of congruent sides. Right now we have one set, but remember that if our triangles share a side, obviously that side is congruent as well. So we have this shared side in the middle. So now we can look at our opposite sides. We have one side is 24 inches and one side is 23 inches. We look at our angles that are across from it. So PT is across from the blue angle. Okay, so I'm going to put that PT, we can see. We have that segment. RS is across from angle P. Okay, so RS is our other statement. If we look at it, PT is 24 inches, RS is 23. So that would mean PT is the larger, so my inequality symbol, my alligator, however you want to think about it, is going to face towards PT because it's greater than. And so my angles are associated with that. So my angle of PST is also going to be greater than the angle of RPS. Okay? My angles that are associated across from my sides, if the sides are larger, then that angle has to be larger as well. So my answer would just be the statement here that measure PST is greater than RPS. The second example works the same way, except for now we have our angle measurements, and we're going to talk about how a side compares to another side. So in this one we have our set of congruent sides. Once again, our triangles share a side, so that means that side has to be congruent. And we have two different sides that we're wanting to compare. We want to compare JM here, and we want to compare LM. It's kind of cut off, but L is the one that's over here. So let's look first at our angles that are across from those sides, the ones that are associated with those sides. So I have my 64 degrees, and then I have 61 degrees. We can see 64 is a larger number than 61, so that means my inequality is going to face it. The alligator would rather eat 64 than 61. So now if we continue this, think about our 64 degrees. Our 64 is the angle JKM. Remember angles, in this case, especially since K is on two different angles, we have to name it by 3 points. So measure of JKM. Our sign's still going to face the same way, so it's still going to be greater than the measure of LKM. And now think about our sides. It asks us how does JM compare to LM. So we need to fill in our side links. So we have JM was the side that was across from the 64 is greater than LM, which is across from our 61. So my answer is this inequality. Okay, in this last example, we're going to need to draw it out. We just have this word problem. I always suggest you would draw things out. If you're not given a diagram, you need to draw it all out. So we have two groups of bikers. We have one, they leave the same camp. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to make a dot that's called C as my camp. I'm going to go and label it up here. And they travel in opposite directions. So I'm going to have one that's going to go right, and I'm going to have one that's going to go left. It says each group travels 2 miles. So that would mean that my length here on these is going to be the same. It's going to be 2 and 2. Then they change directions and travel 1.2 miles. So my red group is going to change directions. They're going to go 1.2. It says that group A starts due east and then turns 45 degrees towards the north. So that would be this side. My group A is going to be my red. So they turned 45 degrees to go north. And it says my group B turns 45 degrees towards the south. Or 30 degrees, I'm sorry, towards south. So I'm going to do that one as well. So they're going southways. And it asks which group is going to be farther from camp. So this group up here, it said went 45. So I'm going to do 45 degrees here. My other group went 30. And then we're going to connect it back because we need to figure out which one would have gone further. And then one last thing on this, it said that after they changed directions, they both went 1.2 miles. So I can also mark that those are going to be the same as well. This will be 1.2. This will be 1.2. So just looking at this diagram that we have, okay, you can draw yours. Hopefully it's a little bit clearer if you're not sure what's going on here. But I have a 45 degree angle and I have a 30 degree angle. My sides are the same. So using my hinge theorem, which of these sides is going to be larger? Would it be my red group of group A, or is it going to be my green group, group B? Well, my 45 degree is going to be greater than my 30, correct? So if I were to write this out, 45 degrees is greater than 30 degrees. 45 degrees is my red group, okay, and 30 degrees was my green group. So that means that my distance traveled is going to be greater for my red group. So in this case, I'm going to say that group A, and it's not necessarily the distance traveled, they both travel the same distance, but in order to get back to camp, if they were both to go straight there, if they had a straight route, right now group A is located further away from camp because it would be the straight distance that goes back on this line, and group B would go back on that distance. Okay, so my reasoning in this is going to be that group A is further due to Hinge theorem. Okay, that's one of the theorems that tells me this. If you did not remember the Hinge theorem, then you would need to explain that because the angle was greater, that means that that length is going to be greater.